Stephen Isserlis, welcome to Beyond Stage Fright. You're known as soloist, chamber musician, educator, author, and broadcaster. As concerto soloist, recitalist, and chamber musician, you perform all over the world in major musical centres. As an educator, you give frequent masterclasses, and you've been artistic director of the International Musician Seminar at Prussia Cove for 18 years. You've written 2 books for children, you write for many of the national newspapers and music magazines, and you make regular appearances on BBC Radio. You have an extensive and award-winning discography, and you're the recipient of many awards, one of which being the CBE in recognition of your services to music. You have such a diverse and varied career. How do you manage to keep the balance between all these different elements of your busy performing life?
I don't know. Well, I practice quite a lot. Well, I don't practice that much, but I practice regularly, almost every day. I have not gone more than 3 consecutive days without playing the cello since I was 10 years old. And the writing I do on planes and trains and things, mostly. And I don't know if I balance everything, but I try. I'm just doing every day. Almost every day is full of work.
And is there any one particular area where you feel more mentally relaxed than another?
I quite enjoy, I enjoy practicing. If I have a clear space to practice and it's going well, I can enjoy that. And if I'm sitting at the piano working on scores, that hours can go by without my noticing. I don't know if that means I'm relaxed, but time stops a bit. And writing, I find revising writing, so probably more relaxing, more enjoyable than actually trying to create the initial draft. Work can be relaxing as opposed to performing.
So tell me a bit about performing, and do you sort of have to deal with performance anxiety in any way?
Oh, yes. As anybody I play with will tell you, all my friends with whom I play chamber, my mantra before I go on stage is, I hate life, and life hates me. Because I'm always desperate. I'm not. Sometimes I'm putting it on a bit, but sometimes I'm not. My main fear always, which means I'm slightly more relaxed in chamber music, is playing from memory. That, for me, is very scary. Often very scary, because I'm always sure I have a memory lapse. But on the other hand, although I don't enjoy that side, I don't enjoy being scared like that. On the other hand, it means I'm never really sort of blasé, because if you play a lot, which I do, the danger is that you'll start to churn out the same performance without feeling anything. And if you're scared, you don't get that, because it's like every note in your life depends on every note. So that's the upside. That's why I haven't tried too hard to get rid of those performance nerves.
So how do you manage memorising? Because it's stressful for so many musicians.
Yeah, I really hardly memorise anything for the first time now. Almost every piece I learn now, and I'm allergic to learning new pieces anyway, but if I do learn them, I play them from music. But for the pieces I know that I have got to play from memory, I play them through on the piano. So I play my part through on the piano. So I know it's not just muscular memory. If I can play it on the piano, then it's in my head. And so, I sort of think it through. If I'm before a concert, if I don't have a piano, I'll go through it on my head. I don't know. Just hope for the best. If you know it really well. And try and remember that if you do have a memory lapse, it's not the end of the world. If I was sitting there listening to somebody else having a memory lapse, I'd have every sympathy. And I would know it was not the end of the world. Of course, if it happens to you, it feels like it. You have to remember it isn't.
So how do you prepare for a performance, both beforehand but also on the day?
Well, on the day, I sleep as long as I can. Sometimes I can't, and that's horrible. But I do sleep usually in the morning. Then I get up and practice and rehearse, preferably in the morning, so that then I have a huge late lunch consisting of beef or lamb or something meat and vegetables. And then I have a lie down. And again, often I don't sleep, but sometimes I do. And then I get up and I listen to the Beatles to wake myself up. And then I go to the hall about an hour before, and I practice, and I have a strong cup of coffee with milk. That's my routine, which of course varies. Sometimes I'm travelling on the day, sometimes, but that's my basic routine.
You do a lot of international touring, so how do you manage the logistics of all of that?
Well, the jet lag is horrible. I hate jet lag. But I think you sort of, as you get older, you sort of think, well, I did it before and I didn't fall apart, so maybe I can do it again. But the logistics, I don't know, travel, of course, with the cello is expensive and pain, but you get used to it. And I take melatonin if I'm changing time zones. You sort of get prima donna-ish. You insist on business class if you've got to miss a night. I can fly to California in economy, it's fine. But if I'm flying back from California and missing the night, then I have to be in business class. Then I'm that much of a prima donna, because I will play much better if I've been lying down. I just had that. I had to come from playing Washington DC. Then I couldn't get a flight that night. It's too late. So the next day I had to get a flight through the night to Milan, and then got picked up by a car, driven to Torino, and then had an hour to lie down there, went into rehearsal. It was okay because I'd been in business class, because I'd been lying down if I hadn't. But even that was Shostakovich concerto, which I play from music, and which I found a lot easier than some of the other pieces I play. So you have to be careful not to, I wouldn't go to Australia and play all the Bach suites within a week of getting them. I probably wouldn't play them there at all. Everybody knows what they can cope with. Some people can just fly overnight, go and drop their stuff off at the hotel and go straight to rehearsal. Some people can just go and play all the Bach suites, having been flying all day from a different time zone. I can't do that, but everybody has their own idea of what they can cope with.
So what would you say are the biggest stresses of your performing life?
Performing, really. Performing from memory for me. Jet lag, coping with that. Nerves, of course, but as I say, that often comes from memory for me. Not always, but often. Having a sort of personal life at home when you're travelling, I travel, I suppose, 2/3 of the year. So to keep up the really close friendships at home, relationships, that's tricky.
When you're on stage and performing, and assuming you're playing with music and it's more comfortable, how do you keep your focus on stage?
I listen to the music, really. The music does things to you. My girlfriend always says she can't believe that I'm sort of this silly person just before I go on stage. Comes and visit me, and then immediately I start playing, and I'm a different person, which I'm not really, but I'm just listening to the music. And that has a certain effect, and it's like an act, and you're taken over by the character you're playing.
And if the nerves get slightly the better of you, how would you manage in the moment? How would you manage to keep yourself calm?
Well, that's tricky. You can do little things like sort of make sure you're breathing properly. And I don't know, there's certain little tricks which can help a bit. Like, I think I'm going to be much more nervous at so-and-so day. I've had a few performances where I thought, this is about as scary as it can get, and I've got some coming up next month, in fact. And so at other performances, I think, well, you're not as scared now as you will be then. But I don't know quite what I'm going to do with those performances. I'll have to see.
How do you manage when things go wrong on stage, or rather when you might feel things go wrong on stage, because very often the audience hasn't got a clue what might be a performing disaster for you? How do you manage that sort of situation?
Well, when I have a memory lapse, basically, is what I mean. I just try and muddle my way through. I try to think ahead and where I can rejoin the music, and try not to. The first time I had a major memory lapse, I started singing, which was not a good idea. But now you just try and rejoin and just hope it doesn't happen again.
What about recordings? Because you've made a lot of recordings. Would you say that making a recording is actually very different for you in terms of nerves and stress?
It's a different sort of stress. There's a stress of going across a memory block, especially when you're recording a concerto and you have a limited amount of time with the orchestra there, and you come across a passage and suddenly you can't play it. That's very scary. But it's not the same sort of butterflies in stomach nerves. It's tension, which is a bit different from nerves. So, but I like recording when it goes well. I really like it.
Do you feel, as a lot of musicians often feel, the sort of stress of the perfectionism that can often come from the whole recording industry?
Yes and no. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect performance. It just doesn't exist. Even from people like Heifetz. I mean, it just doesn't... no note is really perfect. If you think that perfectionism or perfection would involve shaping every note exactly as you want it shaped, as in your mind you hear it shaped, there's nobody can do that. I mean, yes, you can cut out wrong notes, you can cut out bad intonation, but even intonation is, that's a matter of interpretation, really. So the words technical perfection just don't make any sense. And if I hear a cellist on a recording of a cellist, I can usually hear whether they've got a bad technique or a good technique, no matter how many edits there have been on opera cellist. So yes, no, I wouldn't say that's I always think it's like a photograph, but you're just clearing away the blemishes to get a photo of the way you played that, get a recording, a record of the way you played that piece that day. That's all you can hope for.
And when things are going really well on stage, how does that feel to you?
I never let myself feel that way, because in a moment, if I feel that, something will go wrong the next moment, probably. But of course, it's a wonderful feeling. If you know you've played okay, you've communicated the piece as you want to communicate it, that's a great feeling. I don't know which feeling I really enjoy, because always on stage I say I'm not letting myself feel that as I'm playing, because that would probably lead to... Afterwards, I don't let myself feel that because I look too complacent. I don't know which moment it is I enjoy, but there's something there I enjoy.
Stephen Isserlis, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking with you.
And you. Thank you very much.